So, the fourth thing that I stopped doing, and probably one of the most important things that I stopped doing, was fantasizing about the future. And I'll tell you why that is so dangerous. Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing with you 4 things that I stopped doing to improve my dating experience, online or off. And I think that this will really help you if you're a Christian woman especially, but I think any woman can learn from these 4 things that I stopped doing. And so yes, I haven't quite found the one yet, but I do feel like my dating experience is much more to my liking than it was in the past. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with number 1. So the first thing that I stopped doing was hiding my true desires. I stopped tiptoeing or dancing around what I really wanted. And what I did instead was I started to practice radical confidence in my desires. On my dating profile, I would always put exactly what I was looking for. Now, there is a way to express your desires so that it doesn't just come off as being desperate or being kind of inflexible. There's a way to paint this picture in such a way that they actually want to be a part of it. At least the right men will want to be a part of the picture that you paint for them. Being honest is one of the biggest things that helped my dating experiences, because I didn't even come in contact with men who did not want the things that I wanted, because I was upfront about that from the beginning. If a guy asked me, hey, what are you looking for? Where do you see yourself? I would honestly say, well, I'm looking for my husband, a family, to share my faith with someone. And I would be honest about the things I was looking for. I would not shy away from it. I would not try and sugarcoat it. I would not try and dance around it. I would not be ashamed of it at all. I would say it confidently, with a smile, with joy. And I would paint for them the picture of my most desirable life. And from this point, I left it alone. I stopped trying to get my desires from any particular man, and instead I just stated my desires. I never told a guy, well, I expect you to blank, or I want you to blah. No, I'm not expecting you to do anything. This is what I desire. And if you desire me, this is what I desire. I never tell a man what he should do. I only tell him what my desires are. Whether or not he decides that he can fill that desire, whether or not he actually does, that is going to be completely up to him, and my only job is to observe his actions and see if they match up with his words. And I think that I actually ended up having much better conversations, much better dates, because men were not trying to negotiate my desires, because I did not put any expectation for them to fill my desires. This freed me up entirely. I no longer went into the dating process with expectations that would lead to disappointment, because I didn't have any expectations of the other person. I only had radical confidence in what I wanted, and that allowed me and freed me up to just enjoy the date and just allow the guy to act however he wanted, and I would make my decision later. But the most important thing is that you have a mindset that is confident about the desires that you have, and you're not afraid at all to share them, to state them, and to state them without the expectation that they need to be filled by that guy sitting across the table or on the other end of that app. They do not need to fulfill any expectation, but you need to be honest and confident. So the second thing that I stopped doing was I stopped making excuses for men that I was not responsible for. For whatever reason, as a woman, I found myself constantly making excuses for men who I just met. Almost like they were a sibling or a brother or even a child, like I was responsible for giving as much love as possible to someone I literally just met. Sometimes when women get into a dating experience with a man, we automatically start our marital attitude during the courtship process. And you have to understand that you're not attached to this man. This man is not a brother, he's not a father, he's not a son. You do not have responsibility over this man's behavior. I realized that when I saw poor behavior, my only job was to assess whether or not I wanted that in my life, whether or not that behavior fit into the picture that I had painted for them in the beginning. If a man, for instance, did not feel the need to be a provider and protector, but what I'm looking for is a husband and a father, I know that this man is not for me. And I'm not going to give him any excuses. I'm not going to say to myself, oh, well, maybe that was just that date, or maybe he didn't really mean it like that. I was going to hold him at his word. I was going to take his actions at face value. And this came especially handy when I came in contact with guys who would initially tell me that they were Christian or Catholic or whatever it is, and they had some kind of faith. They would kind of let one thing slip from their mouth, or they would tell me they had certain behaviors, and I would kind of just give them excuses, overlook things because, oh, well, maybe they didn't mean it, or, nobody's perfect. I stopped making those excuses. Is this the kind of man that I want to be a husband and a father in my life? Those are the only questions I ask myself now when I see behavior or hear words that I don't agree with. But just like in my first tip, honesty when it comes to observing and vetting a man is important in order to weed out these bad apples. When you can just be honest with, I don't really want that behavior in my future. I don't really want my husband or the future father of my children to talk like that or to think this way. You just have better options. This is a grown man whom you do not know. I don't care how much you must like him. You don't know him. He's still kind of a stranger, maybe a nice stranger, but you are not responsible for his behaviors or what he says, and you do not need to make excuses for them. Take it as it is. Take it at face value. Listen to what he says and accept that it is true. Don't say, oh, well, he didn't really mean it, or maybe he meant this. Oh, well, he only did that once, or I'm sure he didn't mean any harm by doing this thing. Take that behavior, take those words at face value, and assess those behaviors and those words in your own time when you have your wits about you, when your head is clear and you can think and say, do I want this in my future? Okay, so the third thing that I stopped doing, that I think every woman should stop doing, is ignoring her God-given intuition. There is a reason why God has made women so sensitive. We are to learn how to listen to that intuition because it keeps us safe, it keeps us out of danger, and in this case, it keeps us from wasting time with people who have bad intent or who don't have the intent that they initially said. Someone could say all the right words, and yet something in you is telling you, this doesn't feel right. Listen to that still small voice. It might be the Holy Spirit, it might be your intuition, but whatever it is, if it's telling you to do something good, if it's telling you to look over that again, please take a moment, pray about it, bring it to God, say, God, don't allow me into any kind of relationship that is going to destroy me or that is going to hamper your plans for me in any way. And I believe that God will take away anything that is not for you. A person might seem super nice and be giving you lots of compliments, but if something feels like, this person does not know me well enough to be giving me such resounding compliments, maybe I should slow down, maybe I should re-examine, maybe I should ask more questions. Whatever steps that you need to do to really heed that intuition or that still small voice that's telling you to wait, pause, take a second, re-examine, these things can really save your life. So the fourth thing that I stopped doing, and probably one of the most important things that I stopped doing, was fantasizing about the future. And I'll tell you why that is so dangerous. So sometimes when we as women really like someone in the beginning, we begin fantasizing about the future with them. We begin picturing them as a loving husband, as a wonderful father, and we end up painting a picture around this person we do not know that's perfect. And the problem with this is twofold. On the one hand, if this person is a decent person and might actually be a great prospective husband and father, you end up putting pressure on them to fit the model of the picture that you've painted in your head. And that can end up stunting the growth of that relationship or completely destroying the progression of that relationship. On the other hand, sometimes that picture that you painted around this person can actually blind you to who they really are. You suddenly are not really hearing certain things that they have said to you that would have made you aware of the fact that this might not be the right person for me. But because you have this picture kind of superimposed over their face, you don't quite take note of those things that they say or the behaviors that they do. Either way, you might end up sabotaging the relationship, or you might end up sabotaging your goals just because you started fantasizing about the future prematurely. And so reserve your fantasies for when there's a ring on your finger and when you've walked down the aisle. Reserve your fantasies for when there is evidence of this man's devotion for you. Because the worst thing about fantasizing is that you can become so attached to the fantasy that when things fall apart, it can be devastating. And you might have to get over something that I spoke about in my last video, which is getting over someone that you probably didn't even date or weren't in an official relationship with. And that is a whole process of its own. And if you'd like to know how to get over someone that you've never dated, just check out that video. I'll leave it up here somewhere. So those are the 4 things that I stopped doing that really improved my dating experience, online or off. So I hope something that I said today blessed you, and if it did, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe, and share with your friends. And until next time, have a blessed day. Bye.